Well, I just saw Halloween, and I wish I had spent my time doing literally anything else. It's a standard slasher film that makes attempts at trying to be about something greater, but just ends up being complete schlock. After so many Halloween movies, this one operates as if only the first film happened, and ignores all the other ones. It even ignores the other time they attempted to do this exact thing. I guess we should just call this one Halloween H40? Anyway, this one just really bothered me in a way that I haven't been bothered by a film in a long time. In a lot of the marketing, interviews, and even some reviews, this film is being held up as the true sequel to the original Halloween, and I can't for the life of me understand why. This is another one of those movies that is fueled by pure nostalgia, to the point where I feel like nothing I saw was even remotely original or inspired. It's abundantly clear that the people behind it loved the first Halloween, but they really overdo it with the whole homage thing, and it crosses that line of basically being a ripoff. I feel like 50% of the film or more was just reusing shots, situations, and kills from either the original Halloween, or strangely enough, the sequels it's trying to distance itself from. Everything from the opening title sequence to the ways in which certain scenes are framed tries so hard to recreate the feel of the original, but ultimately just ends up feeling like a cheap imitation. Without all of that fan service, what's really left, you ask? Well, basically a bunch of typical horror movie nonsense that is to be expected. People going into dark and suspicious places, stupid teenagers getting killed, and jump scares. Lots of jump scares. The only shred of substance to be found is in the story of Laurie Strode, but that itself feels pretty problematic. This film finds Laurie as a paranoid, borderline crazy person who is obsessed with killing Michael Myers if or when she gets the chance. She's a full-on gun-nut survivalist, and the story shows how that paranoia distances her from her family. They keep making parallels between her and Michael Myers as if they are dark reflections of each other, but none of this is really executed in an interesting or meaningful way. I just simply don't buy that the girl from the first film would get to this point. They tried to go full-on Sarah Connor with her, and it doesn't feel warranted because her circumstance wasn't nearly as extreme. If you had a nearly indestructible cyborg hunt you down, and you had to train your son to be a great military leader that would save humanity, you would probably be a militaristic gun nut. However, if you just had a crazy guy kill a few of your friends and try to kill you, I think you'd be traumatized and paranoid, sure, but not to this extent. I actually thought this was handled better in H2O because it was more subtle. You saw that she was still traumatized, she owned a gun, and she was overprotective of her son, but overall she realistically moved on with her life. Oh my god, did I just cite H2O in a positive light? Someone please help me. Anyway, this was all done to apparently convey the message of women standing up to the abusive man in their lives.
This Halloween is a story about women confronting the abusive man in their lives.
Everywhere in the world we're talking about women predominantly coming forward who've been aggressed in some fashion and taking back the narrative of their lives from their perpetrator.
Is Halloween really the right franchise to do that in, though? Laurie Strode was never a strong female character, she was just the survivor of a slasher movie, no different than Nancy Thompson, Alice Hardy, or Sidney Prescott. Besides, when you literally can't kill or do much of anything about the abusive man, doesn't this whole message kind of backfire? It smells like tacked-on political bullshit to me. Slasher films in general aren't about social commentary or even their main characters. They're all about being scary or gory. So having a message like this shoehorned into the film is just bizarre. Beyond that, a lot of the actual events and actions in this movie are extremely forced or just illogical. A good example of this is when Laurie and her family are all safe with the police, and instead of going to the police station, where it is definitely safer, they decide to stay at Laurie's secluded house in the woods because, well, movie. Later, when Michael comes to the house, Laurie sees him outside, puts her back against the door that has a glass window, and surprise, surprise, she gets grabbed. I mean, that was fucking stupid. Even more ridiculous is Laurie's grand plan to shut off all the lights and stumble around with a flashlight looking for him. If she wanted to have the advantage, why not keep all the lights on? I know there's usually dumb stuff in horror movies, but the stupidity on display here is just laughable. Now let's talk about Michael Myers himself. For the most part, he does what you expect him to do. Kill people. However, there were moments here where I was getting flashbacks to the excessively violent Rob Zombie Halloween films with him stomping a guy's head in or something equally tasteless. There were also moments with Michael that again seemed very forced, like when Laurie's granddaughter is trapped in the back of the police car with him. Michael attacks the driver, gets out to brutalize him more, and completely ignores Laurie's granddaughter in the back seat, allowing her to escape. Yeah, it's really dumb. Finally, let's talk about the musical score. John Carpenter's classic Halloween theme makes a welcome return as expected, but there are a few additions that I wasn't completely on board with. Don't get me wrong, I think the music is the best thing the film has going for it, but there were a few parts that just seemed a little too bombastic for a horror film. As you can probably guess, I would not recommend Halloween H40. It's dumber than your average slasher film, and you probably won't care about any of the characters. I was personally frustrated and bored because this film seemed to be more interested in copying someone else's style rather than providing any of its own substance. When the lights came up in the theater, I heard a lady behind me say to her friends, "Ugh, we'll have to go home and watch the good ones." And I thought,
You're goddamn right.